So hello and welcome to the April 2019 edition of the Amsterdam Film Show. My name's Kathy Leung and we've got with us David Swatling.
Hi, Kathy.
Cool, and as usual, David's got a review for us from a new release this month. And we're going to have a little look at some of the rest of the highlights of films released this month and one or two special film events. So the big special event this month, April 2019, is the Imagine Film Festival. It happens every year, but it's time again.
Yes, that's great.
The Imagine Film Festival, this is how they describe themselves, celebrating fantastic film, but it means so much more than like action fantasy, which so often when you hear like fantastic. So don't think Marvel and stuff like that. This is much more under the radar, sci-fi, horror, lots of horror. And they've got plenty of space for B-movie, slasher films and zombie films.
Something for everyone.
It runs from the 10th till the 20th of April. And they've packed in a zillion films. All
as
screening.
Usual.
yeah, as usual. All screening at the Eye Film Museum. I've picked out for you one called Prospect. It's from 2018, and it's what I would call a dirty sci-fi.
Ooh.
It's kind of on a low budget, you feel, but they've been really creative with it, and it's had really good reviews. And the word prospect, you'll see in the description, it kind of brings to mind the Wild West and prospecting for gold and stuff. So anyway, here's the description. It's a mixture of space western and coming of age, and it shines brightly with its cool design and a strong teen female lead. C and her dad Damon live together on a spaceship on their way to harvest gem resources on a green planet. When their ship crashes and it turns out that others are scavenging the same grounds, C needs to take matters into her own hands.
Ooh, sounds fun.
Yeah. So yeah, it's got this fabulous like vintage look, like the spacesuits and everything you can see from the trailer. And it was Denis Villeneuve, the director of Arrival. He coined this phrase, I think, dirty sci-fi. And I think it really fits with this one. This film Prospect also has a small bonus of the actor André Rojo. Don't know if I say his name right. André Rojo, and he was in The Wire playing the character Bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
And for many people, including President Obama, that was their favourite character from
exactly.
The Wire.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you watch the trailer, you're like, who's that? That's a familiar face. That's him. It's Bubbles from The Wire. So that film, Prospect, is playing at the Imagine Film Festival on the 12th and the 16th of April. And this will be pretty much your only chance to see this film on the big screen. And it's had an 89% review on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's high.
Yeah, pretty good. And I'd never heard of it before.
No, me neither.
So that's great. Let's support those smaller independent films.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the Imagine Film Festival have also got a few classics showing. Alien 4K restoration. That's playing on the 13th and 16th of April. Another dirty sci-fi, I'd say. And Blue Velvet with an extra kind of behind-the-scenes film playing afterwards as well. That's on the 12th and the 18th of April.
Oh, that's an exciting one to see.
Yeah, but I kind of thought, well, how does Blue Velvet fit with the Imagine Film Festival kind of genre? So,
well, I think anything David Lynch does would fit in the festival.
Which I suppose maybe Blue Velvet, because I think there's a kind of a body found and stuff.
Yeah, it's dark. It's very dark.
Okay. So that's the Imagine Film Festival happening from the 10th to the 20th of April at the Eye Film Museum. And now a look at a film released last month, Us, but it was released late last month, so we didn't really get the chance to talk about it. And David's seen it, and it's turning into a bit of a buzz, a bit of an event itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that was a deliberate thing, the fact that they haven't had a lot of press previews, because they didn't want people giving anything away until the film opened. And it has had the biggest opening of a horror film ever. Us is Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out, which he won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. And so it's been really anticipated. And it's a really fascinating, thought-provoking horror film, taking a lot of ideas from different horror films of the past, but putting them together in a really 2019 way. It really involves a family, in this case, an African-American family, and that's a very specific choice that Jordan Peele makes. And they're off on vacation to beautiful Santa Cruz in California. And suddenly there's another family in their driveway who are them. They look exactly like them, except they're not them. And, everybody in this film has a doppelganger. And the clash between the doppelgangers and the people, that's what the horror film is all about. And it's really interesting. There's so many ideas in it. It's the kind of film that you want to talk about right after you saw it. I talked to a guy on the train platform afterwards, and then you want to and the more you keep thinking about it, the more ideas keep coming to you. And you think, oh, wait a minute, there was that. And people argue about what certain things meant. And he's really taken the horror genre and updated it to 2019 in a way that's going to, horror's been having a comeback.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because they were never given the big budgets way back when. And now that they have, they're able to look as great as the big blockbuster films. But when you've got a smart guy like Jordan Peele writing the screenplay, there's a lot of interesting levels of thought going on in it, too. For people who like horror, it's loads to talk about.
I'm going to have to go and see the film now, but I've got to, get brave because it looks a bit scary.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Lupita Nyong'o, the Oscar winner for 12 Years a Slave, is the mom in the film. She's fantastic, as is the whole cast. But it's her playing her doppelganger character that's really creepy.
But you know what? Yeah. Although it's just a film screening, it makes you think maybe we should organise a meetup with the Amsterdam Film Club, which we haven't had a meetup for a long time, where people who've seen the film can talk about it with each other.
Yeah, no, I see. That's a good idea. I mean, it took me a few days before I could talk to a friend on the phone who finally saw it. After meeting, and it was just interesting to exchange ideas. And he said things that I hadn't thought of, and vice versa. It was really fascinating. It's been a long time since there's a film like that.
Yeah, we should do that. It beats spending half a day on the Reddit threads anyway. Let's do it. Look out for the Amsterdam Film Club. Us, picking apart. We'll do it. We'll schedule it soon. The White Crow is out in Dutch cinemas from the 11th of April. David Swatling's been to see the film and he tells us what he thought.
About 20 years ago, actor-director Ralph Fiennes read a fascinating biography of a legendary Russian ballet dancer, Rudolf Nureyev. And now he's in love with all things Russian, especially Russian culture. But what he found really fascinating was the story of Rudolf Nureyev's early life, from growing up in a small town in central Russia, going to ballet school in Leningrad, and then going to Paris for the first performances outside of Russia, and the life-changing decision he made there. Now, I didn't think really of Ralph Fiennes as a director, but 10 years ago he did direct Coriolanus by Shakespeare, and that was very well received. And I consequently think that's about the time he thought of this story again. And it's taken 10 years to kind of develop. He worked with David Hare, who's a British playwright, screenwriter, on a script. And what they've come up with is a really fascinating, more than a normal biopic kind of movie, because we talk about, a lot of people know Rudolf Nureyev for the changes he made in ballet, bringing the male dancer to the fore, who was always in the past kind of just simply supporting the female dancers, and the fact that he defected to the West. He was the first kind of major internationally known person to do that in 1961. So that's where the film begins, but what Hare and Fiennes did together was they kind of used a three-part structure. You've got the 1940s small village in central Russia where Nureyev grew up. You've got the Leningrad Ballet School where he studied. And then you've got the 1961 trip to Paris with the Russian Ballet Company, which was his first time in the West. And by doing that, we switch back and forth between these three different parts. We don't quite know what's going to happen next. And actually, it makes it a really interesting film because, all right, we think Russia, Nureyev, defection. But this is not really a political film. As a matter of fact, Fiennes plays Pushkin, the dance teacher, and early in the film he says, dance is not politics. So we're not talking about a political thriller here. We're also not really talking about a dance film. It's not like The Red Shoes or Black Swan or those kinds of films. I mean, there's dance in it, and it's great, but what we're really focusing on is the development of this young artist, the portrait of the artist as a young man. And so consequently, the film rides on the shoulders of one young man, and that is a Ukrainian dancer named Oleg Ivenko. And he's never acted before, but he has a passing resemblance to Rudolf Nureyev, just enough that you completely buy it, and he is a wonderful, wonderful actor. Ray Fiennes must have worked really closely with him, playing his teacher and directing him at the same time, because the way he portrays Nureyev, it's not the difficult, foot-pounding, crazy, mad artist of Nureyev's later life that we see. What we see is a young man who's passionate about what he does and wants to do it the best he can. Someone who's insatiably curious about art in general. There's lots of scenes of him going to the museums and looking at paintings and studying male forms. And you watch his development. And you also see, because he's so passionate, he's sometimes difficult. There's an arrogance about him as well. But those are really just clues to what he will become as a man later in his life. This is the kind of film, if you don't like dance films, don't worry about it. I mean, it's really more a very sensitive portrayal of the difficulties a young man has to achieve what he wants to as an artist. And it's difficult because, both ballet and Russia have a lot of rules. So he's constantly bouncing against the rules of the ballet at that time, how men were sort of subordinate to the women, and also later the rules of Russia. I mean, for instance, when they go to Paris, the dancers aren't allowed to talk to the Westerners, not even the Western dancers. And he's constantly bucking that system, and he actually goes and makes friends with a group of French dancers. And it's seeing the Western world and the freedom there that he would have as an artist that feeds into his decision at the end of the film. White Crow, the title, is an idiom in Russia meaning a person who's unusual or extraordinary, not like the others, an outsider. And that's what this film really portrays. And I think they're also appealing to a younger audience who really probably have never heard of Rudolf Nureyev. So it's a whole new character for them. And in that way, it's not one of those fast-edited, fast-moving, big booming sound musical pictures like, say, Freddie Mercury's biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody. No, this is a much gentler, much more sensitive, and really intense but beautiful story of one young man coming to grips with his creativity and making a choice that would change his life. I think it's something for everyone. I mean, I loved it because of the art. I loved it because of the beautiful scenes that show kind of paintings almost, and the wonderful acting of not only Oleg as Nureyev, but also the whole cast, really. Ray Fiennes plays Pushkin in Russian. I should mention a lot of the film is in Russian with, for local viewers, Dutch subtitles, so if that's a problem for you. But I don't read Dutch so well, and it wasn't a problem for me. So I highly recommend The White Crow. It's a beautiful, artistic film, and it's an inspiring film.
So here are some more highlights from the new releases in the Dutch cinemas in April 2019. And most of them came out on the 4th of April, actually. So we've got 4 films that I've picked out for you. And they are Shazam, a young adult fantasy movie. By shouting one word, Shazam, this streetwise 14-year-old foster kid can turn into the adult superhero Shazam. So this is kind of weird because this character flips from being an adolescent to an adult man. So you're kind of thinking big, obviously, mixed in with a superhero film. It looked really dorky and stupid to me, but it's had really good reviews. So I think it's just well suited to its market. Also from the 4th of April, Fighting with My Family. So this also kind of looks a bit odd on paper, but it's had brilliant reviews. It's directed and written by Stephen Merchant, who's well known for his comedy like The Office and many more. And this is a comedy drama biopic. A former wrestler and his family make a living performing at small venues around the country, while his kids dream of joining World Wrestling Entertainment. So WWE, that's a whole other world. But Dwayne Johnson is a big cameo in this film. But it's also got Vince Vaughn and many others. And it's just a well-reviewed, fun film. Also out on the 4th of April, Gloria Bell starring Julianne Moore. A free-spirited woman in her 50s seeks out love at LA dance clubs. So this is interesting because it's one where the critics on Rotten Tomatoes give it a big 92%, but the audience give it 40%. I don't know, make your minds up. And I wasn't sure to mention this, but as horror is the big thing right now, Pet Sematary, a classic film I think from the 80s, has been remade. It's obviously based on a Stephen King movie, and that's out this month as well. And of course, at the end of the month, you've got the Avengers Endgame. I don't know if it's going to be the last Avengers movie or something. I kind of hope so. But if you're a fan, that's out at the end of the month. But you'll know all about it. We're not going to be doing a review of the Avengers Endgame. But our radio show, Generation Z, they might go down and see the film and have a review for us. So keep an eye out on broadcastamsterdam.nl for that. And very finally, at the end of April, from the 25th, we have a British film, but it's directed by Dutch director Sacha Polak, and it's called Dirty God. Jade is a young mother in the prime of her life when an acid attack leaves her severely burned. While her face has been reconstructed, her physical beauty is lost beneath the scars. So this is a kind of independent British film with a Dutch director, and it's screening at the Filmhallen for sure, if you like the sound of that. That's where you'll find it. So that's it. Thanks to David, our critic, and see you next month.